Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. A couple of years ago, I had a request from a viewer saying, hey, could you do a video on cassettes? And I'm like, it's such a niche area. I mean, even for me, I have over 5,500 physical albums. Cassettes is a relatively small part of it. I think I have between 150 and 200 cassettes. I'm going to show you a bunch of them quickly. But they have their place in my collection. And then what happened was, at my job, I ran into a really interesting guy like last week. His name is Charlie here on Long Island, and he runs a place called Tapehead City, which is an online store website. I have it running there. And this guy is unbelievable. And we had a major conversation. He told me all about his business and what he does. And he makes some money doing it. He doesn't make a living doing it. And a fascinating guy, and I wanted to bring it to your attention, as well as talking about cassettes. Again, my channel is not sponsored. Charlie did not ask me to do this. I'm not benefiting from it. I did get a t-shirt, though. How great is this t-shirt? Is this the best logo you ever seen? A boombox robot with a cassette head and a boombox. I love it. That was really kind of him that he brought me this t-shirt. But again, he didn't ask me to do this. I just want to do the right thing. That's the way my channel runs. And it's a good way to frame cassettes and where they stand. So let's talk about the history of cassettes briefly. The analog world before digital, before CDs, roughly 1963 to 1983. You had your vinyl records, you had 8-tracks, I'm a fan of that, and cassettes as well. And here's the amazing thing that a lot of people don't realize. In 1980, from 1983 to roughly 1990, do you know that cassettes were the dominant selling physical media in music? More than vinyl. Vinyl by then was already pretty much dead, and CDs were really expensive. But why else were the cassettes the dominant physical media? Portability. Do you remember the Sony Walkman? I had one. This is a Discman, but I had a Sony Walkman. Everybody was walking around with that cassette on there. You could run, you could jog, you could play cassettes. It was phenomenal. Car stereos. I still have one. One of my cars, I have two cars. One of the cars that I drive is a 1998. The CD player actually finally crapped out, unfortunately. The cassette player in the car is still working. So you listen to cassettes in that car. Boom boxes, there you go. In this logo, everybody was walking around with big boom boxes. Remember that movie, Say Anything, with John Cusack? He really liked that girl. He made a tape, and he just stood in front of a window in front of her house, holding the boom box. It was a great scene. Didn't have to say nothing, just held that boom box. What else about cassettes that was amazing was you can make mixed tapes that were really easy to do. I used to do it. In fact, the great movie High Fidelity, there's a whole scene in there about the art of making a mixtape. What about tape trading? Well, certain jam bands, the Grateful Dead, of course, Fish, the fans prided themselves on tape trading, and the bands allowed it, trading live shows and things like that. Hard rock bands did that. Rap and hip-hop, of course, was big on cassettes. And turning your friends onto other music. That's actually how I got into Blue Oyster Cult. My friend Sandy made a mixtape of Blue Oyster Cult. I'll always remember it. And that's how I got into BOC. The record clubs, RCA Columbia House, they used to sell 8-tracks, and then cassettes stuck with that, and vinyl, of course, as well. And the other thing is that cassette quality improved over the years. Here's a bunch of Rolling Stones cassettes. The original cassettes, like here's an original Flowers, they were fairly thin, not the highest quality. But as time went on, here's an Emotional Rescue one, not the highest quality. The J cards were very plain and kind of boring and not much to them. But then later on, even an older one, they remastered these things, for lack of a better word, because they are analog. But here's like the Stones Black and Blue. All of a sudden, it didn't look like that Emotional Rescue. The tapes were much better. And the J cards, oh, look at this. You could actually open them up, and they were reproducing the graphics from the vinyl album. And all of a sudden, it was a lot more appealing to have cassettes. They sounded actually really good. And they looked really good. And, there's still a market for these original ones when they're rare. like no stone unturned. But man, they just came a long way. It was fun. But here's Steel Wheels when it first came out. This is not what you would call a remastered one, but it had the hole in the back, and then all, there's the lyrics. Yeah, you need a microscope to read them, but you need a microscope to read them on CD as well. So the cassettes became a lot more appealing and a lot higher quality as time went on. And with all of the reasons we just talked about, the portability and also the cost as compared to CDs, man, it was a really good format. Eventually, CDs would take over. You could skip tracks on cassette, but you'd have to fast forward, you'd have to reverse. When CDs came down, well, you still had the portability. You can play them in the cars. You had a Discman right there. You could skip tracks easy. You could actually program the tracks. And unfortunately, some of the old cassettes, certainly, the cassettes degrade over time. And the CDs are pretty much impossible to really damage. I have CDs that are scratched and they still play great. It's not perfect. But then somewhere in the 2020s, the decade we're in, cassettes have really started making a comeback. When I go to the local record stores, I am seeing more and more cassettes on the walls. I am seeing people buying cassettes, and they're cheap, and they are still portable. They're actually making, and Tapehead City not only sells cassettes, we're going to talk about them, but they sell new versions of like disc, the Walkman type devices. And the thing is that the old technology is really, really good. The newer technology is much more disposable. I have a monster cassette deck in my unit right there. I have all component parts. I have a TIAC sync cassette. It's a professional grade model. The thing is this, it's a box. It's huge. It still sounds amazing. It's from the 1980s. It still sounds tremendous. And cassettes are analog, and they're also DIY. They're relatively cheap to make and to distribute and mail. So bands that want to sell their music, well, vinyl is very cost prohibitive. It's very expensive to make. It's very expensive to ship, and there's always problems with vinyl. They skip. Even the new ones have pops. The cassettes, cheap, easy to send out. And I just saw an ad for a local record store on Long Island called Record Stop. They're selling new boom boxes, the portable players. There's definitely like a cassette boom. And Tapehead City, and again, it's not a commercial for them, but they deserve it. I'm going to talk about what they do in a minute. Well, what the hell? Let's talk about Tapehead City. So this is a guy named Charlie. He runs it out of his house. He started it in 2014. This postcard's a little bit old. Like 11 years old. And he sells thousands and thousands of cassettes. New ones, some that he imports, some that he manufactures. He sells used one. It's quite a site. It's called tapeheadcity.com. He's got it on Facebook. He's on Instagram, which I don't actually do. He runs this thing out of his house. He's a one-man operation, and he does it for the love. He used to be in punk bands, apparently, on Long Island, and he was a punk rock singer and played guitar, I think, and he just does it for the love. He actually, with another record store, initially created Cassette Store Day. You probably heard that. Something happened with the partner, and Charlie redid it as Cassette Week. It's still going on to this day. He runs it 100%. It's a big deal, and it's still going strong. He also does a thing called Tapehead Tuesday, where you go into his site, and on Tuesday he's got special sales and special deals. He does exclusive deals with foreign manufacturers in the UK and Japan and others. He imports rare cassettes, including live shows. I have 3 of them. These I got from him. This is Lou Reed, Ultrasonic Recording Studio, New York, 1972. He did not manufacture this one. He's importing it. And custom color cassettes. Here's a green one. This is a great, great legendary radio show. These are that gray market radio shows. You see them, they actually release these on bootlegs. But, really nice artwork, really nice liner notes, and the sound is good. It's not great, but it's good. But it's what you would expect from a radio show. And I'm going to show you a bunch of mine over here in a minute. Here's another one, The Clash. I love The Clash. This is a very famous radio show as well. From 1982, the final tour of the original band. This was from Japan. And that's what that one looks like. And he sells these tapes, and he's importing these things really reasonably pricing. His prices go from $10, $12, $14. Here's the Smashing Pumpkins, the Riviera Theater, Chicago, 1995. Again, this is a radio show. You could actually hear the intro from the DJ. And I love the colors, the different colors. So he imported these, and I love live music. That is the biggest part of my cassette collection that you're going to see. He does exclusive mixtapes. He calls them Tales of the Tape Monster. And he actually makes them and sells them. Really cool compilations like the old day of mixtapes. He also manufactures, distributes, and sells custom cassettes for local artists. They don't even have to be local. They could be anywhere. They will send him their master tapes and their artwork, and Charlie at Tapehead City will reconfigure the artwork for the J cards of the cassettes. He gets it mastered. He gets the, a sample of it, makes sure it sounds really perfect before he does the run, and then sells it to the band so they could even sell it. He'll sell it on his website. And in fact, this is a list of his releases that he does really like his own label, Tapehead City. And I'll show you. So these are ones that he's made for people that he sells. That is another thing that he does that is really, really cool. There's the artwork of the shirt I'm wearing. I just think greatest logo. What else does he do? This is really cool. He does licensing deals with major labels and minor labels to release unique and custom cassette versions of their albums. Upcoming, he's going to be doing Metallica Live 1994. That was the 25th anniversary of Woodstock concert that Metallica was at. He made a deal with the band and the label to release that show on double cassette. You can see it right there. There's Bad Religion, Suffer. That's a deal that he made with Bad Religion. And he's working directly with the band to release that album for the first time since like 1987, I think it came out. And he does custom cassettes, the actual cassette body of it. So that one is coming out in a custom color, either yellow or like a smoke color. So like people like colored vinyl, people like colored cassettes. And he does that as well. In fact, Descendants, he's made a deal with them, and he's putting out Milo Goes to College for the first time reissued since also, I think, 1987. He's got a custom cassette with a custom coffee-colored cassette that's coming out in September. He's doing Bad Brains and Rancid and Operation Ivy. This is the website. So he makes all these exclusive deals, but he's a straight-up honest guy. The pricing is really, really fair. I know I'm like pushing him, but he deserves it. If you're a cassette guy, you need to check out his site. He did a deal, he was telling me, with Nirvana, a thing called Love Buzz that he put out in a red-colored cassette a couple of years ago for Valentine's Day. He did a run of 500. He sold out like instantly. He was selling it for like, whatever, $14 or something like that. They were going on the secondary market of upwards of $800. He could have done a second run, but he didn't. Maybe it was stupid, but he could have started, jacking up the price to match the secondary market, but he's not that kind of a guy. This guy Charlie is just a straight-up guy. And typically the runs that he does is anywhere between 500 to 1,000 runs. And the pricing, again, anywhere from $10 to $14. If you like cassettes or you want to get into cassettes and you're not in an area like me where the record stores are having used cassettes, but actually here, if you want new cassettes, this is the way to get them, the only way to get them, really. The online cassette tape store, Tapehead City, and he was so kind to return after I met him and gave me this shirt. Again, he didn't ask me to do this video. He's not that kind of a guy. He just deserves it. Now, let's talk about my cassette collection, because a lot of people wanted to know. I have between 150 and 200 cassettes. It's not my preferable way of listening. Here's some Rolling Stones ones, right? I'm not the kind of guy who's going to go out and buy every Stones one. But I figured, you know, if I'm in the car, my 1998 car, and I feel like listening to Stones, it's a good way to go. So, and like I said, this is an original one. I tend not to want to hear that. But the latter day ones, where ABCO remastered them, they look like this. They sound digitally remastered. They sound much better. And, you know, even Steel Wheels was a good one. Here's Yaya's remastered. And then I saw this Newberry Comics a while back when they were selling music. They're really not much anymore. Cross-Eyed Heart, an exclusive from Newberry Comics, and there's Jagger's Wandering Spirit and Pete's Main Offender. And again, you know, the cassettes at that time, they came a long way, man. They sound really good. At least if you have a good system, you know. But you could say the thing about vinyl, you know, oh, vinyl's great. Well, not necessarily if you're just playing it on like a small Crosley stereo that's got a little mono speaker on it. You know, I'm lucky that I still have my vintage, you know, system from the 80s that still works. The quality of that stuff was great. Here's some more Stones ones. No Security and Bridges to Babylon, a lot of one. And you can see how they came out. The J card is really big. It's got the 2 holes on the flip side. Stripped, that was a really good one. Voodoo Lounge is a cool one. These sound really good. My stereo, if I pop these in, you would not say, oh, that must be a cassette. Definitely not. Remember they did singles for a while. Here's High Wire. And it had like 2 tracks on it. And I got a couple of these. Here's Rockin' a Hard Place. I thought it would be fun to have these, and I bought them when they came out. Mixed Emotion. They had unreleased B-sides. So, you know, that was kind of a cool thing. Certainly, my go-to for cassettes is live stuff. And most of the stuff that you're going to see here are live concerts that I either recorded or found out in the wild. Here's April Wine from London. I'd make a little artwork. I showed this the other day in a video. Here's my 4 cassettes of the Atlantic Records 40th anniversary show. A whole show. Minus Led Zeppelin because they refuse to let themselves be on the air. Sometimes I find cool ones that I've never seen anywhere. Like here's the best of Bad Company. This is a Japanese release. Not going to see this anywhere else. But this is not a great quality cassette. This is an original one. Look at that. You can just tell. Compact cassette. This is not great quality. If you put this on, it sounds like a lousy old original cassette. Here's the band live. But I do find some cool ones. Here's a Dire Straits release of their debut album. This is from another country. So every once in a while, out in the wild, I'll find a really interesting version, and I'll pick those up. But mostly I'm focusing on live stuff. Here's Elvis Costello live. Let's keep going. I got lots to show you, and I'll try to make them pretty quick. Or I'll find a deal. Here's a Robbie Robertson album. And Renaissance on cassette. Again, you know, the portability, although I listen to CDs in the car, but now that in my 1998 car, the CD crapped out, I'm going more to cassettes. Here's a Pretenders live cassette that I recorded. Here's another one. And here's that Robert Plant. Remember I showed you that bootleg the other day on vinyl? This is the original recording from the actual radio broadcast that I had taped. So, you know, it was fun listening. Back in the old days, radio would broadcast concerts. Here's the Division Bell on cassette. That's a really good Latter-day Floyd album that I love, so I picked that one up when I saw it in the wild. Hot Tuna, talk about tape trading. Great band in the dead mode and fish mode. Jethro Tull, I got a couple of concerts on cassette that I recorded back in the day. The BBC Rock Hour, and that stuff would get broadcast on local radio here, and I would record it. Here's Elton John. From the Hammersmith Odeon in 1973, Joan Jett live, and I would make like a little artwork, make it a little bit more fun. I'll show you a couple more here. Some Yes, live Madison Square Garden on the Drama Tour. You're not going to see that much. LA Forum in 78. Wishbone Ash, BBC. I don't really need this anymore because I got the box set that I haven't listened to yet. U2, I've shown this in other videos, live at Malibu on their very first tour in the United States, 1981. Classic. Here's an import U2 CD that I spotted out in the wild. Again, not very good quality, but fun to have. How about the Amnesty International concert with U2 and the Police? You know, that was on the radio. Taped it. Squeeze, a couple of their concerts. My Father's Place, if you're from Long Island, legendary venue. And they used to broadcast shows on the radio. And if you weren't at the show, tape it. Patti Smith live at the Tower Theater in '79. Radio broadcast. One other thing to mention about cassettes. Back in the day, you had a boombox, or maybe you had that system, and you could record on them very, very easily. Now, of course, you could do that digitally with CDs. But back in the day, that was great with cassettes. And this is, in a way, you know, really valuable for me. Not valuable for anybody else. But, like, here's the earliest cassette. This is a cassette of my wife and her family that somebody recorded when they were little kids, just running around their apartment and talking. And you hear them with their little kid voices. And it's not the kind of thing you're going to listen to, but, it, you know, you find stuff like that. It's like old photographs. And I have recordings of bands that I was in. This is a band I was in. I didn't mention this the other day, but I was in a band called The Visitors. Here's a live recording of a show we did, and a friend of mine, me and Sandy, we used to jam in my basement, and we recorded them on little, I guess it was a boombox, and they don't sound, you know, terrible. Here's a live show from a cassette that was in the audience of the shows that we did at Kenny's Castaways. And I got some recordings of me in college playing my songs. So this is how I would have to relearn some of my songs, because I don't remember how to play them. And just more jam sessions when I was a kid growing up playing the drums. And we would jam in my basement, and somebody would pop in a cassette and record them. And it was just kind of fun. So that's what these are. I mean, these are all recordings of my songs, and my friend Sandy also. So that, you know, priceless is a strong word, but that's pretty cool, you know. And maybe you had that when you were young, these recordings. Now, I'm sure you tech people know how to get that stuff from cassette digitally. I don't know. So the only way I could hear that stuff is on my stereo system, and it goes through my stereo. I have no idea how to get that stuff transferred digitally. But anyway, there is my video on cassettes. I know sound like I'm pushing Tapehead City, but why not, man? This guy does it for the love. Tries to make a little extra money doing it, but he's got a regular job. And if you're into cassettes, definitely check out Tapehead City. But let me know your thoughts about cassettes. Whoever requested this video, I don't know, a couple years ago, I never forgot it. This was the time to do it, so I hope you enjoyed that. Send your comments. If you're new to my channel, hit subscribe. Check out my videos. I got Tapehead City back here, but the Alan Rosenberg Show's got like 500 videos. I'm doing this for 5 years. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time on the Alan Rosenberg Show.